Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot and a member of PMDG's tech team. In today's video we'll feature part 2 of how I personally learned to fly a new airplane. If you haven't seen part 1 of this series yet, then I would very much recommend you to check it out first. At this point we're going to pick it back up where we last left off, which is after completion of the engine start in the Cessna Citation Mustang that's just been released a couple of days ago. So, we've started our engines and now it's time to move on and prepare the airplane for taxi. As always, we will need the product manual for this, and I would very much recommend you to use it as well, at least to get an idea of what to do and where all the switches should be, and then you can still build up your own procedure and your own flow in a logical manner that is going to cover all those switches. So, let's go from the manual first of all. We have flight controls free and correct. So let's do the flight control track here. Then flap set into the approach position. Speed brake check and retract. Windshield anti-ice as required, so might as well just switch it on. Avionic cooling fans, check airflow. So that is a point which of course is pretty hard to do, checking an airflow in the simulator. Altimeter set and compare, so we'll make sure this is set to the local QNH, in our case 1026, and it gives us the same reading. Then CAF and MFD messages are checked. We have pitot heat off over here, which comes at a later point in the procedure though, it seems. Okay, so that's the before taxi procedure complete. Next up would be ready for taxi, and this would also be a good point to set up our avionics. So if you haven't done that earlier on, then I might just about do it now as well. For the sake of this video, I'm going to skip over this step. Right, so ready for taxi. Taxi safety switch on, external light switches. Gonna turn the taxi light on. Brakes, apply and hold, and park and brake release. Then for taxi we're going to check the brakes, the nose wheel steering and the flight instruments. Right, so that sounds like a plan, so let's go ahead and brakes off. Initially, when I learn a new plane, I always add the thrust very, very slowly. Also turn away from the ground staff over here. Okay, then brakes. Checked. So especially in the beginning, when I'm new to an airplane, I always go very, very slowly. Right, flight instruments checked as well, compass is turning, skid indicator is moving. Alright, so we are rolling. Once I'm more familiar with the handling characteristics of the airplane on the ground, that is the point where I start to taxi it faster and then try to get comfortable with how the airplane handles at higher speeds. So, for the very first taxi out, let's just about going 10 knots here, narrow taxiway, so that is perfectly fine. What I also do in the beginning usually, when I'm on a turn, is just to go outside and check if I'm actually taxiing the airplane on the runway, on the center line. Because especially in Flight Simulator, since you're flying so many different aircraft types, it can just be very easy to think that you're on the center line while you're actually not. So it's always a good idea to go outside and check if you are actually in the right positions. So for now we're at the holding point. I am going to set the park and brake once again, and then let's continue with the manual and see what we have there. So before takeoff procedure, anti-ice system, check. Okay, so we'll turn the stall warning on, check if we need any of the engine or wing anti-ice. Passenger seats fully upright, flaps set for takeoff, trim set for takeoff, speed brakes retracted, transponder set. Okay, so transponder onto altitude mode. Displays avionics navigation systems, checked. Of course, if we were to do a full-blown flight now, we would check that we have the correct indications for our departure and everything. And crew briefing complete, so at this point we just again go over our briefing and review the most important points. That's the before takeoff procedure complete. So basically over here we just check everything, but we don't really do anything. I set up here anti-ice system check, but I just see when I'm looking to the next one that the pitot static switch should be switched in the ready for takeoff checks. So once again, the before takeoff checks is only checking things, but not actually switching anything, except for the transponder here. Then we have the ready for takeoff checks, which are basically from the point where we are going to line up on the runway. So let's do those. Pitot static switch on, engine anti-ice as required, windshield anti-ice as required, passenger safety switch on, landing lights on, anti-collision switch on, and ICAS checked. So I'll once again try to remember my own procedure, which is now going to look like this. Pitot static, anti-ice, lights. And that is the ready for takeoff checks complete. So we have now completed pretty much the entire checks and are ready for our takeoff. Now, let's do the whole thing again, shall we? So, restart the flight and let's revise the whole thing again in order to get familiar with our procedures. Remember that important notice we had in the manuals earlier on that we should not load a flight on the runway. So in the Citation Mustang we are actually forced to do everything again and again from the cold and dark position on the apron. Just going to give the engines a short moment to shut down here. Alright, everything's shut down. So, first of all, I'm forced to reapply the procedures that I have learned in the previous episode, which usually helps quite a bit in getting more proficient with how to do everything. And this is basically the inspection. Flap lever works, trimming works, brake is set, the database is up to date. Master caution reset, we only have pitot alert over here. Alright, perfect. So that's our preparation complete. Then let's start the engines. Beacon on, nav light on, air conditioning off. And I missed the anti-skid switch. See how easy it is? So then let's go ahead, start the right-hand engine. Going to run a little bit of time acceleration here for things to go a bit faster. Alright, good start number 2, increase 55% N2. Bit more, something like this, yes. Okay, then start the left engine. And once again I'll put a little bit of time acceleration on to expedite that engine start. And very good start. Perfect, so we have the generators on, avionics power is on, and the voltage and amperage is checked. Right, so that is the procedure from the previous episode complete. Then let's go ahead with the current episode. We'll do flight control track. Flaps onto the takeoff position, speed brakes. Checked, windshield anti-ice as required, avionic cooling fans checked, altimeters set and compared, and cast PFD messages, P2 off is checked. So that's the before taxi checks complete. At this point I would set up the avionics as well. Then ready for taxi. Put the seatbelts on, we put the taxi light on, we hit our brakes and release park and brake. Okay, so we are clear on the left and clear on the right. Let's slowly start taxiing. We can already check that our flight instruments are working. Nose wheel steering is working. Into either sides, brakes, working as well. Then we have the before takeoff checks, which is basically just checking that everything's set correctly. Anti-ice is off, lights are set, flaps are out, speed brake is retracted, and the trim is set. Also transponder is going on. You can see this time I'm taxiing a fair bit faster than on the previous occasion already. And here we are at the holding point. Then we have our lineup procedure, which is basically the heater static on, anti-ice checked, lights going on. And that's the ready for takeoff procedure complete. Then we also have our before takeoff checklist up here that we can quickly go over. So we have avionic cooling fans, check for airflow, fuel quantity recheck, takeoff data confirmed. FMS flight director set, pressurization, set destination, elevation, well that is not simulated in here. Electric elevator trim checked and set, flaps set for takeoff, windshield anti-ice switch is on. Pitot static switch on, ICAS checked, before takeoff check is complete. Alright, and that basically concludes the procedure that we try to learn now, from engine start all the way to the runway. Now, with that completed, next up comes our takeoff, and that, however, is going to be a fairly extensive thing to go over, so it will get its own video. For now, thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope that you have enjoyed it thus far, and I hope that you can follow along on how I'm going along to practice flying a new airplane in Flight Simulator. If you haven't done so yet, be sure to leave a like for the video and subscribe to the channel. I know that at least 50% of my viewers are currently not subscribed. And finally, if you want to support the channel, I would be glad about a small donation using the Buy Me a Coffee link that you can find in the video description below. Or if you want to support the channel over a longer period of time, then I would be very happy if you join me as a Patreon. For now, thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again for the takeoff.